morning, Drive Time. Welcome back. Glad you're here to join us this week. We have a real treat this week. We have Pastor Dennis Gingrich with us today. And I am really excited because I had the opportunity to speak with Pastor Dennis a couple of weeks ago, and he gave me a little bit of an insight as to what he's going to talk about today. And quite frankly, I'm excited to listen to what he has to say and excited about what he's going to share with you guys. And it's about parenting and different seasons of parenting. But what I want to tell you is if you're not a parent, you should definitely listen and take notes, because if you become a parent, you're going to need this information. So without anything further, for a man who really needs no introduction to us, Dennis, thank you for being here.
Oh, well, thank you, David. It's awesome to be a part of the Drive Time and the men's ministry here at Cape Christian. And yeah, this is something I wish I would have known early on. I kind of had to learn it along the way. I had the advantage maybe of becoming a parent fairly young. Actually, Linda and I got married. I had just turned 21. And a week before our first anniversary, our first son was born. And so I just had turned 22. And I became a parent at that point. But parenting's been on the heart of, for Linda and I for years to, just to maximize that and to really be intentional about it. And here at Cape Christian, she teaches the Parenting on Purpose class that she wrote the materials for. That's the precursor to people dedicating their children. And she's done a number of other parenting things. Of course, she's a labor and delivery nurse for the last 31 years. So she's brought a lot of babies into the world. So that's all an important piece of this. But one of the things that has helped us a lot over the years, we have 3 children. The oldest is now soon to be 45, coming up in December. And then we have a second son who is 41, I believe. And then we have our youngest, our daughter, just turned 37 a month or so ago. So this comes out of experience of pastoring for 40 years, parenting for about 45 years. And it comes out of spending a lot of time with a lot of parents who have been challenged in their parenting, sometimes by just what they felt, seen, experienced as a child from their own parents and so on. But a framework that really helps me on this, and this is what I was mentioning to you, Dave, was the framework of 3 things that are really important in terms of ages and stages of the journey. And these aren't tied to a real clear age, but I think they're more stages of the journey in terms of how you relate to your child. And I think the things that have helped me, the first one is you're a cop, and in the best sense of the word. And and I know you understand this one, David, in the best sense of the word. And I've been a chaplain in the Cape Coral Police Department for 24 years and hung around a lot of cops for a long time. The best sense of the word of a cop, not in the enforcement of the law piece so much, but that too, but mostly about protecting and the safety of your child. That's what you do from that little tiny baby that you hold all the way up through, and the toddler, and they're learning to walk, and they're learning all of those things. You play the role of a cop in the sense of keeping them, safe, of not walking into the street, and all of the safety factors of protecting them. And as we think of that, and of course you do have to enforce some rules and in that part of the journey. Where I see parents running into problems a lot of times is they don't lose that mentality, and on into the teenage years, they're still playing the role of a cop to these adolescents and teenagers who at that point are trying to determine how they're going to fit into the world and how they're going to live their lives, and they're testing the rules and they're testing the boundaries and all of those things. And if you always keep relating to them as a cop, it'll just create a lot more tension in the relationship. And people sometimes are shocked when Linda and I tell people we never had a curfew for our kids. And they say, what? You never had a curfew? That you just stay out all times of the night? Or no, that's not true. I've done tons of ride-alongs at night, and I see parents who let their kids stay out at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's horrible. No, that wasn't the idea, but we always focused on the relationship more than the rules. And we built the relationship, and the relationship was the most important piece, so that when it came time to curfews and they were out and so on, we didn't set a specific time. We didn't set a specific time that they had to be in. Linda just talked to a lady recently who had a curfew of whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, by her parents. And she's now an adult with kids of her own. And you know, she literally talked about her wedding night when the bridal party was going to go out, or the night before the wedding, and go out and celebrate. She couldn't go out with them because it was her curfew time. Her parents still set the curfew time, and it was early, and she couldn't go out with her bridal party, and she was getting married the next day because the rule was more important than the relationship, and they were still playing the role of the cop, as I would look at it from the outsiders hearing the story. They were still playing that cop role. There's a rule, and we have to enforce it. Even though she was getting married the next day, she's an adult. She wasn't a kid, and she was an adult. And so that idea. But we always had relationships. So if it was prom or whatever, or any given situation, if they were going to be out with the friends, would have a conversation about, okay, so what time do you think you'll be done? What time will this event be over? What time do you expect to be home? And now, when they expected to be home was what we held them to, and we negotiated that, given the circumstance and the situation. When would be the best time? Yeah, I think you had better try, to be home more by 11:30 instead of 12:30 or whatever, or can we come, where can that come? And then what we did was this is about relationship now. And so we're going to expect you home by, say, 11:30. If something changes and you're not able to be home by 12:30, please call us and let us know. And back in the day of a payphone, before cell phones, they made sure they had a quarter to be able to call us and to say, I'm not going to be here on time, whatever, because I said, otherwise that time, every minute that goes past the time we've agreed upon for you to be home, we're nervous. We're wondering if you've gotten into an accident. We're wondering if something has happened. And we care about the relationship, and we care about you. So please do the courtesy. And I remember many times that, they did that if there was a change, but we never had a set curfew that was always the same. It was based on the circumstance and based on the relationship of a conversation. So what we had done, we had changed and moved from the cop role to, when they got into middle school and high school, we moved into the second C, what I would call the coach role. We were the coaches. And, and I was a soccer coach for 13 years when I first moved here to Cape Coral. And, as a soccer coach and any other type of coaching, you're there and you're in practices and so on, you're training and you're setting the parameters and conditioning and all those kinds of things. But once the game starts and the whistle blows, they're out on the field. It's mostly based on how you've taught them and what you've, done. And, you can holler a few things from the sidelines, but, in soccer, there's only a halftime after 45 minutes. You don't have quarters, there's no timeouts. There's none of that. And so it's that way with the parenting in the adolescent and teenage years. There's what you put into them, and all of the other times, they're away, they're out with their friends, they're at school, they're whatever. It's the coaching role is what's most important at that point, up to that point, because you can't be with them out there on the field all the time, telling them, don't do this instead, do that, whatever. They're going to have to make their own decisions, and they're growing in their decision-making ability. And so that was a real critical time, moving from the cop role to the coach role. You're working as a coach. You're coaching them along. You're hopefully giving them mostly encouragement and not mostly criticism. That's the coaches that excel best when they you have to critique and you have to help them improve, but it's the encouraging piece that they respond to the most, more than always critiquing or criticism. And so that coaching piece is a challenging time up and through their high school years as well, is to finding that right time. And of course, you still have your practices, you still have your locker room moments, you have your time when you have those conversations about changing attitudes or behaviors or things, for the second half, and all of those things that you do in coaching. You also have in parenting during that season when they're still around and so on. But there gets to be a time, and all of our kids, went to college. The oldest one stayed here locally and went to now called Florida Southwest, back when it was Edison, and then on to one of the first year graduates of Florida Gulf Coast University. So he stayed here at home. The other two went off to college and were away for college. But when they're away, you have to actually transition out of the coaching role to that third element. And that's another tough transition, is to get used to. That third element is what we call, Linda and I always call it the consultant's role. You're now the consultant. You're not the coach that can make them run extra laps because they did it wrong. You're no longer the cop where you're monitoring and trying to keep them safe. They're on their own. They're whatever, living an adult life. But you're in the role of a consultant. You're in the role of a consultant. And what does a consultant do? Consultant pretty much responds to the idea, to the need that exists, the felt need. I need to call dad about, what's happening with my car. I need to call mom about this, or I need to call whatever. Instead of, keeping the role of a coach, trying to say, if you don't do this, you're not starting the next game or whatever. You got to get out of that role. You got to get out of that role and move into the consultant, and it's more on their terms at that point. It's more on their terms. And the interesting thing is, if you do a good job in the cop role, and you do a good job in the coaching role, and up through the ages of really working on the relationship more than just the rules, if it's about the relationship, they're actually going to see the value of staying connected and asking for your advice, asking for your counsel, asking for help, or asking for whatever they see as necessary. But that's hard. It's hard to move from that role of moving to the consultant role, because you still want to speak into their life. And that's true all the way through it. When they become parents, and and you're seeing your little grandbabies acting in certain ways, you just want to tell them, you ought to try this, or you ought to do this or do that, whatever. But remember, you're in the role of a consultant. Are they asking for your help? Do they want some advice on how to raise their kids? Do they want some advice on how to spend their money, or any of those things? That role of a consultant is an important role. And I look at it now, having our oldest son and his wife been married 20 plus years, 21 years, I think we've done that job fairly well as consulting. You'd have to ask them for sure. But not sticking our nose into their parenting style or their ways they approach things or whatever. But I do remember lots of times, and it's still true of our, their children are now, our oldest grandkids are now 14 and going into high school and fifth grade, and our little ones, youngest grandchildren are one just turned 2, and then we have twins that are turning 7 next week. But they often call and ask about, hey, how did you handle this? What did you do with this? My daughter still calls me anytime she's got a question about whatever, cars or lawnmowers or whatever. She calls Dad and picks his brain about what they should do in terms of that. And so I'm acting as the role of a consultant in that way. I don't stick my nose in their day-to-day stuff. If they ask, I'm happy to give wisdom and counsel and advice in whatever way. But so those 3 things have always helped us, and I've shared those things so many times with folks over the years who are trying to adjust to the role of parenting. And it's kind of like we always told our kids, this is our first time being parents, and so we're learning too, and we don't know everything. And that role of humility and keeping that relationship and remembering that's so much more important than just the rules. And so I think that's the gist of what I was talking about with you, Dave, and I just wanted to share with the guys. Regardless, I wish I'd have heard this before I became a parent. It would have helped me just to kind of anticipate. Kind of had to learn it along the way, but we had some good. We were very intentional parents. We did a lot of reading. We did a lot of paying attention. Went to some workshops and seminars and things to learn to become the best parents we could possibly be. Not because we had bad parents. We actually had, really good parents on both sides of our Linda's family and mine. I have high regard for my parents. They didn't do everything right, and we haven't done everything right as a parent. But we talk openly about that and walk with humility. But had I known, and it was kind of those 3 stages of what to expect, I think the transition points wouldn't have been as difficult to move from the cop to the coach, from the coach to the consultant kind of role. So that's kind of my overall thing. If you have some additional thoughts or questions, Dave.
No, I mean, for me, I guess I find myself in 2 transitions at once. I have 2 sons that have recently moved out and moved on to some degree that are 19 and 20. Mm-hmm. And then my daughter is 10 and getting ready to start the 5th grade. So I find myself in 2 transitions from where I should have been coaching to consultant and yes, going from that cop to coach. And man, just to hear you talk about it, it is hard to get those transitions because you just think like, well, if they would just do this thing, or if they would just do it this way. And it's hard because at the end of the day, it is about relationships and not about rules. And we care about our kids and we don't want to see them struggle the way we struggled. And, but at the same time, we have to give them the ability to learn that on their own. And it's, again, for me to kind of zoom out, listening to you and looking at these 2 transitions that I'm facing, it's really interesting, and is definitely something that I'm going to have to be a little bit more intentional about allowing those transitions to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's it, and see the end goal. Look for the end goal. There's another time, and I don't have it prepared. I could have printed it out, maybe shown it or whatever, but it's kind of a chart that I've drawn for folks at times. And age 0 is kind of is on the bottom left-hand corner, and it goes out across the bottom. 0, age 5, age 10, age 15, age 20, or whatever numbers you want to put in there. And then going up the side you think of a graph up the side is the age goes across on the bottom, and the decision making goes up on the left-hand side, if you can visualize that. And at the bottom is the decisions by a child. 0% of is at the bottom, and 100% is up at the top. And 100% of the decisions. Well, when they're age 0, when they're first getting started, you're making 100% of the decisions for them. But if they're 18 or 19 years old and you're still making 100% of the decisions for them, you've done something wrong. You want to be getting down by the time that lengthens out on the bottom and gets out to 18, 19, 20 years old. They ought to be making 100% of their decisions, and you should be making 0% of their decisions by that point. And that's that's the end in mind. That's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to control their lives forever. I remember telling my kids that, in the high school years and the adolescent years, there's this tension that goes on when those two lines cross, and there's the age that's going up, and you're making less and less of their decisions. And they're making more and more of their decisions, and they want to make more of their decisions, but it's like that handoff of, do you trust them with the decisions they make, and so on. It gets a little rough in that point where those two lines cross on that graph. It gets a little rough sometimes as to how many of the decisions they can make for themselves and so on. But you ought to remember the end in mind is you want them to be. You don't want an adult who you're still making 100% of their decisions. We call that, there's either something very seriously wrong with their mental capacity or physical capacity, or very dysfunctional about that if they're healthy in every other way, if we're still making 100% of their decisions when they're adults. That's what we're preparing. The end in mind is that they make 100% of their decisions, and hopefully they'll be really good, solid decisions. So I think the 3 stages are a part of that, but also just keep the end in mind. That's what you're going for in the long haul of parenting. You're going to raise responsible, good decision-making adults who obviously are in love with Jesus and want to carry on the family traditions. I don't mean doing the same things, but with that there's integrity, that there's love for Jesus, love for God, love for people, all of those key central things that you want your family to be known for in the legacy that you leave. So,
well. Dennis, I can't thank you enough for coming on this morning and just laying this out in really what is a simple way. It's simple to hear, and the idea is fairly basic, but obviously is a challenging thing as a parent to engage in those transitions. But thank you for being here. As always, we value your voice and your input. I pray that that the guys who are listening, who are facing these transitions, can while they feel the tension, they can lean into it and trust that they're on the right path. And for those guys out there listening that aren't parents, or maybe they're new parents, that that they're going to be armed with this long before I was here with a 20-year-old. I'm thankful that we're able to put this out there for all the different generations of guys out there. So again, thank you.
My blessing to be able to contribute to the CapeMEN. So
thank you, guys, and we're going to see you back next week with another speaker, another topic. Thanks for being here this morning.